So when I was about 15 years old, my best friend and I got invited to a redneck party. Naturally, thinking my life was the most boring thing, I said, hell yeah, let's go. Now, although my high school was very diverse, there was a lot of cliques, it never really mattered what clique you were in when there was a party. It was so small that everybody got invited to these parties. So after everybody had heard about the party, the word was spread, it was on, we head out for the night. Being a redneck party, this party was in the middle of nowhere. It was in a deserted field. So we had to park at the very end of a long dirt road and then make the 3-minute excursion out to the field. Once we got to the actual party, there was a bonfire, there was a ton of people, there was tents set up around the bonfire, there was a kiddie pool filled with beer. We were promptly greeted by somebody at the party and served trash can punch, and of course started drinking immediately as we did. Soon after starting to drink, I had to use the bathroom. So Arielle and I headed out to find some trees and basically had to go pee behind them. At this point in the night, I was already so drunk that I was having the most extreme trouble undoing my pants. I was like, oh my God, I seriously cannot get my pants off. I struggled with them for a minute or two, and then I was like, okay, do I just pee my pants? Is this really what level I'm on right now? Arielle was like, oh my God, Twiggy, no, you can do this. So I kept fumbling on and then finally was able to get my pants off to use the bathroom. Once we were done relieving ourselves, we made our way back over to the party and continued drinking and just having a general good time. Somewhere in the night, Arielle and I noticed that there was only one beer left in the kiddie pool. We took this as a sign of fate that we had to have this last beer. So we went over to the kiddie pool hand in hand, and Arielle steps in to grab it, and as she's grabbing it, she leans over a little too far, and we both just end up right in the kiddie pool falling. But hey, we got the beer. We came back to the party, and our friend Randy comes out of his tent, and he's like, oh, hey ladies, come check out my tent. And we're drunk, so we're like, tee, sure, okay. So we go back to Randy's tent with him and a girl named Lauren. Like I said, we were all pretty intoxicated at this point, but we're just sitting around chatting, and I'm like, oh wow, nice place you've got here. And then all of a sudden, Lauren and Randy start making out. I'm like, well, I mean, that's happening. And then all of a sudden, Randy's making out with me. And I'm like, I mean, this is happening. And then I'm making out with Lauren. Arielle's making out with Randy. It was just a big kind of weird cluster of drunkenness. Then suddenly, Will busts into the tent and his arm is scorched. And Will's like, hey man, I'm going to the hospital once we can find someone to drive. Someone pushed me in the fire. And then we hear somebody scream out, no one pushed you, Will, for the last time. What had actually happened was Will was doing a couple of experimental drugs that night, and at some point he had climbed on top of somebody's truck that was there and said, I have an announcement to make. I am the Lizard King. And then jumped off of the truck into the fire. Anyway, I gotta go to the hospital. So we're like, okay, whatever. He leaves and we all go back to making out with one another. Somewhere during this whole make-out drunk fest, I accidentally knocked over the candle that was in the tent and thus promptly lighting the tent on fire. Once we noticed the tent was on fire, we all ran out of there and were like, oh my God, fire, tee, okay, bye. And then it hits me. My pants are wet, but my pants are only wet between my thighs. I suddenly have a memory of me trying to go to the bathroom in the woods, but not being able to get my pants off. And then it hits me. Oh my God, I peed my pants. So I told Arielle, oh my God, Arielle, I peed my pants. And she just cracks up laughing and she is like, Twiggy, no you did not. We fell in the kiddie pool. And then I have a faint memory of us diving into a kiddie pool after a beer. I was just like, oh yeah, okay, great. Didn't pee my pants, thank God. And then, as all alcohol does eventually catch up to me, the alcohol had finally set in and I was like, uh-oh, I'm gonna get sick. So my boyfriend Jude has to pick me up and carry me all the way to the car. Arielle's boyfriend is pissed off at her for the whole tent incident. My boyfriend is seemingly just cool about the whole night. I don't know how I deserved him. We get back into the car and Arielle's promptly holding my hair back so I can vomit because That's just how it goes with me, and I threw up a lot in the back of that van. Since we were all drinking that night, we had to sleep in the van because nobody could drive. So Arielle and I slept in the back seat, and we waited until morning so we could all finally go home. By the time morning came around, somehow my vomit had disappeared. Arielle and I both have vivid memories of me throwing up a lot in the back of the van that night and begrudgingly thinking about having to clean it up the next day. But to our surprise, when we woke up, there was no vomit to be found anywhere. So the following Monday, we're back at school. Arielle and I get ready to start just a regular day, and we quickly notice that there are flyers all around the school, pasted up on the walls. And then we notice we're on the flyers. Somebody had papered the school with photos of me and Arielle from the party that night. And then before we can investigate any further, we hear our names called over the loudspeaker to head to the principal's office. We get into Mr. Morrison's office and he's like, "Where did the flyers come from?" I'm like, "Yo, how would I know?" He's like, "Well, who took the photos?" Ariel's like, "Well, it wasn't me." He's like, "How is it none of y'all know anything?" Randy's like, "It was a crazy night, man." So he sits there and thinks about what to do. Clearly something has gone on, but he doesn't know what. He doesn't know how to get to the bottom of it. We're not the ones who papered the school with the flyers, but clearly we're the ones in the photos. Then he says to me, "We could ticket you for underage smoking." So I say, "Are you going to?" He just didn't say anything, rolled his eyes, and said, "I guess y'all are free to go." So we leave, our day goes on, and I am finally at the end of my day waiting for my bus. And I'm just standing there thinking like, man, something interesting finally happened to me and I have no proof. And then just like that, the kid who was responsible for making the flyers and papering the school walks up to me, doesn't say a word to me, hands me one of the flyers, and then just walks away. And that was the time I went to a redneck party.